Well, of course, it doesn't just so happens because we humans are designed to eat plants. Every time we make the foolish mistake of eating animals, we screw up our health and the world. These are my latest books. You could contact me through glenmerzer.com, and please subscribe to the Glen Merzer Show on YouTube. And I will now stop the share.
Great. Thank you so much, Glenn. That was a great presentation. So, excuse me. Now we're going to begin our Q&A session. I just want to let everybody know that your book is also available on our website, therealtruthabout.health.com. And then was that everything? Is that what you just showed? Was that how to contact you? The best way to
Yeah,
get in touch
through
with you?
glenmerzer.com is easy.
Okay. All right, great. So there's our bookstore right there, and you can get Glenn's books on the realtruthabout.health.com bookstore. So we're going to begin our Q&A, and if anyone would like to ask a question, they can put their hands up in Zoom. So first, let me ask you you just did this presentation on how to argue with a meat eater. Have you used it to argue with a meat eater, and has it persuaded them?
Well, I have persuaded some people. I find that it depends so much on the personality of the person you're talking to. I have a new young friend, he's in his 30s, who's an environmentalist. And I said to him, you can't really be an environmentalist and eat meat. You should go vegan. His cholesterol was high. And he said, okay. And he started the next day. That was a year and a half ago. And he's been vegan ever since. I have other people who I've persuaded, but it's been slow. They start by cutting down on meat, and then slowly they realize they have to get rid of dairy, and they take their time. I like to think that my books have created a number of vegans. I've come across people who've written that in their reviews of my books or have contacted me. So yes, I use this technique. I believe that it's most important to at least be able to answer the health arguments. Maybe with some people it's more important to them to talk about the environment or the animal cruelty. But if you're not able to make the case on health, then you could lose the debate because people will just throw studies at you and confuse you.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. And if for people who want to arm themselves to go out and talk to meat eaters, what would, if you had to boil it down to just one or two really basic arguments? Because you just gave an hour and an hour, almost an hour and a half presentation on this. Obviously, people aren't going to be able to do as good of a job as you've done, and they probably won't come prepared with a PowerPoint. What would be one or two items that you think are most effective in the discussion when you're trying to I'll say enlighten as opposed to argue with a meat eater?
Well, first, all the studies on comparing mammalian herbivores with mammalian omnivores and mammalian carnivores. And Dr. Milton Mills has videos on this that you could find online. It just becomes clear that everything about our biology, about our anatomy, was not created to eat meat. It was created to eat plants. You see the gape of a lion or a tiger when it seizes prey. We can't do that. And we have no instinct to do that, no desire to do that. We don't have claws. We have weak hydrochloric acid in our stomachs. We have long intestines. So if you review all the facets of anatomy, you find that humans are just natural herbivores. So I think that's a very strong argument. I think the fact that we're the only species to get atherosclerosis is a powerful argument. And I think the fact that so many people, even children, will just naturally be repelled by the idea of eating meat. It isn't something that humans want to do. So the only reason it happens for the most part, is that we just buy slabs of meat, packaged meat in grocery stores, and we don't look at how it happens. If we looked at how it happens, we wouldn't want to do it.
Great. So in your book, Food is Climate, which directly responds to climate change solutions from Al Gore, Bill Gates, Paul Hawken. Tell me tell me what's wrong with what are their solutions? What's wrong with their solutions? What are your solutions, and how are they better?
Well, Bill Gates, in his book on climate, begins by proposing that what we have to do is just absolutely get our fossil fuel use down to zero. Now, I'm betting that he goes on a lot of private planes. She uses burns an extraordinary amount of fuel. So how does he justify that? He probably then, gives a few $1,000,000 to plant trees somewhere, and he tries to atone for his sins. But there is no clear path to zero fossil fuel use in the near future. It's a fantasy. I'm not an apologist again for the fossil fuel industry, but realistically, we're not going to have all electric trucks on the road anytime soon, and we're not going to generate 100% of our energy from clean fuel anytime soon. We should absolutely try to reduce our use of fossil fuels as much as we can, as fast as we can. But we're not going to get to zero anytime in our lifetimes. So Bill Gates seems to feel that the solution that I propose and others propose of a vegan transformation of the world, he wrote that that's not realistic. And why did he feel that that's not realistic? He wrote, because of our human traditions, like having turkey on Thanksgiving. So for his solution of getting to zero fossil fuels, he's got to make airplanes run on pixie dust. And he thinks it's unrealistic to stop having turkey at Thanksgiving. I think it's perfectly realistic to not have turkey on Thanksgiving. Gather with your friends and family, feel gratitude, all the wonderful things about the Thanksgiving holiday, and just do it without killing the turkey. Is that so hard? So what he thinks is impossible, I think is easy. And what he claims is possible, I think is impossible, getting to zero fossil fuels. Now, Paul Hawken, I think, is a more thoughtful guy, and he has a whole book on different solutions to the climate crisis, and he makes a wonderful contribution in describing them and promoting them. And he acknowledges the importance of diet, but again, he refuses to just hop on board and say we should all stop eating animals. Instead, he talks a little bit about regenerative agriculture and tries to greenwash regenerative agriculture. You can have regenerative vegan agriculture, but not with cows. And then Al Gore just refuses to talk about animal agriculture. It's like it embarrasses him. And all he talks about is fossil fuel burning. And in doing so, he's talking about a very small percentage of the problem.
Okay. And with regard to Al Gore, I thought he had gone vegan at one point. Is that not true?
I believe he is vegan, and he's very shy about it. And he doesn't want to suggest that anybody else go vegan. And he raises some animals, I think, on one of his farms. I think he tries to do it regeneratively. I've heard him wax poetic about the wonders of the magical cow manure. He started as a politician, and I think maybe he just can't break that instinct for not wanting to offend people and say something that the public might find extreme. I don't think he's ever running for president again, but if he did, he probably wouldn't want to be considered the vegan candidate. So he just refuses to acknowledge the self-evident truth that it would be much better for the planet if people would stop foolishly eating meat and making themselves sick.
Right. So how do you address criticisms from proponents of sustainable meat and dairy farming who argue that these practices can be part of the climate solution?
Well, they're not.
Right.
As I said in my presentation, grass-fed beef grass-fed cows are worse for the planet than the CAFO cows. Now, I know that seems strange when you think about all the terrible, terrible horrors of CAFOs. I mean, they're an environmental nightmare. They like to call them lagoons, these cesspools of pig manure and cow manure. And I just saw a very good documentary called The Smell of Money, in which, it tells the story about how in North Carolina, they spray the pig manure on human beings, on the neighbors who live there. Often they're poorer African American people, and they get the brunt of this horrible industry. So CAFOs are nightmares. But from the point of view of the planet and from an understanding of how much meat people eat, if people are going to eat meat, understand this, there is no alternative to CAFOs. We have, 340 million Americans eating meat 3 times a day? You can't raise that much meat on happy farms with a few pigs running around, a few cows ambling through the grass. You can't do it. You need the CAFOs if people are going to eat meat. And the grass-fed beef live longer, exercise more, and take longer to reach their finishing weight, so they're belching more methane. It's not a question of trying to do sustainable animal agriculture. That's a contradiction in terms. There is no sustainable animal agriculture. It's all a threat to the planet.
Great. I'm going to go to our audience for one of the questions. JW, please state where you're from and ask your question.
Hi, I'm from Boston, Massachusetts. So I'm sorry, when you posted your contact information, I missed it, and I'm wondering if I might get it, and wondering if you speak for other groups.
Yes, I do. Thank you. And it's just myname.com, Glen Merzer, GlenMerzer.com.
I'll
Okay.
put it in the chat.
Okay, great. Thanks so much. It was a fantastic presentation. Thank you.
Thank
Okay.
you, JW.
John beat me to it. All right, great. So, see here. And okay, so can you discuss a study that supports your thesis of that you present in Food is Climate and its implications for the global dietary guidelines?
Well, Dr. Silas Rao's study, in which he made the assumption that 41% of the grazing land could be restored to forest. So he did the math on how much more carbon dioxide would be sequestered if 41% of the grazing land on Earth was restored to forest, and how much more